She's wearing the same necklace I pawned to cover his back taxes. The chain glints in the gallery light, catching in the curve of her throat like a secret too proud to stay hidden. A Cartier Trinity, 3 golds, 3 bands, 3 decades of debt now looped around her neck as if they belonged to her. She laughs at something Peter says, not too loud, just enough to be noticed. The cameras catch it. I stay still by the sculpture installation, a champagne flute in one hand, my body positioned in profile, good posture. Clean lines, no emotion. That's the assignment when you're the wife of a man who makes money without ever touching it. I remember the appraisal slip, $3,480. I had to sell the necklace to cover a roof emergency that turned out to be a penalty fee from the IRS. Peter said he'd handle it. Peter always says that. She's wearing it like a gift. A museum donor pauses beside me. Her lips pull into a pleasant, practiced smile. Are you one of the exhibit guides? She asks. I blink. No, I say, evenly. I'm Julia Hampton. The name lands somewhere between her eyes and her discomfort. She recovers quickly. Oh, you're Peter's wife, I say. Still. She makes a soft hum, the kind people use to sweep dust under a rug. Lovely event, isn't it? I nod. I don't move. My gaze doesn't leave the necklace. Eloise Lawton tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear and leans in toward Peter, whispering something into the shoulder of his bespoke tuxedo. He laughs. They practice this. It's a gala, after all. The donor list alone reads like a who's who of Fairfield's trust fund oxygen. People here don't get embarrassed. They get endowments. Peter's hand hovers just behind Eloise's back, never touching, but close enough to claim. Not one person stops to ask why he brought a 8-year-old plus one to an event sponsored by our family trust. I step forward. The museum director sees me finally and his brows lift. Oh, Mrs. Hampton, so sorry. We weren't expecting. He doesn't finish. His eyes dart behind me, to where Peter and Eloise are circling toward the donor wing. I offer him a smile. It doesn't reach anything. I believe you have the gala program on hand, I say. He nods, shuffles through a table of linen-covered pamphlets. I take one. Inside, Peter's name sits just under the platinum donor tier. His bio says asset strategist. I wrote that sentence 3 years ago when we first funded the wing. He said the wording sounded elegant. On the inside fold, beneath the schedule, there's a print listing of past gala themes. I take a pen from the check-in clipboard and draw a clean red circle around our wedding date. It was the same weekend we signed the founding endowment agreement. He called it romantic vertical integration. I tear the page neatly and slip it into my clutch. I fold the rest of the program and press it flat against the table. Eloise drifts toward me now, alone for the moment. Her dress is emerald green, chosen deliberately. It's the exact shade of the silk scarf Peter gave me for our 5th anniversary. There's something chilling about how little imagination betrayal requires. Julia, right? She says, polite. I offer the same smile I gave the museum director. It still doesn't reach. You look radiant, she says. Are you enjoying the benefit? I ask. Her eyes flicker. Very much. Peter said it was always your project, he insisted. I see it. How thoughtful. She doesn't know what else to say. That's the thing about the ones who think they've won, they forget the exit door swings both ways. Peter joins us with a flute in each hand. He gives one to Eloise and glances at me with that familiar, PR-safe warmth. Jules, he says, as if it's casual. Everything going smoothly? I noticed you brought a new donor, I say. He smirks. Eloise is just here for the art. Aren't we all? I look down at her necklace again. Some pieces have surprising provenance. Eloise touches the pendant lightly, as if unsure why. Peter shifts, clearing his throat. The press is asking for photos. We should. Of course, I cut in. Smile wide. I step aside. They move toward the photo backdrop, the one printed with the museum logo and our family fund name in gold. A photographer lifts his lens. Peter straightens his jacket. Eloise angles her shoulders. And in the space between them, a flash captures something they didn't mean to pose for. The look on my face, reflected in a mirrored sculpture nearby, composed, backlit, and no longer part of the frame. I gave him warmth. He gave her the proof it never mattered. As to Dave Ways not. To Daverways not. Julia receives a buzz on her phone, an image just sent. It's from someone anonymous, a photo of Peter and Eloise at a private preview, time-stamped from earlier that afternoon, before the gala ever opened. 4 hours earlier, the house had been silent except for the coffee machine clicking out its final breath. I sat at the kitchen island, tracing the edge of the gala invitation with my thumbnail. Heavy cardstock, gold trim. The kind of paper you don't throw away even after the marriage dies. Across from me, Peter read emails like they were gospel silent, blinking, scrolling, tapping. His tailored shirt was monogrammed at the cuff now. Small changes that appeared after his third bonus quarter. "You're not wearing the black tie," I said. He looked up, distracted. "This one's cleaner, more modern." "Right, modern." He hadn't asked what I was wearing. Hadn't noticed the invitation I'd placed at his breakfast spot all week. Hadn't touched the framed photo of us. I moved to the hallway mirror, the one the museum director had taken the night we announced the donor fund. I opened the drawer beneath the island and pulled out the gala program proof. Same layout as the one they'd hand out later tonight. But this one had editing marks, red lines, my writing, margins reminding the designer to include sponsor tiers and correct Peter's bio. Asset strategist. That was my suggestion. He originally put financial ecosystem architect. "Don't forget we need to be there by 6, I said. He nodded but didn't answer. His phone buzzed. He stood, already stepping away. "I'll meet you there," he said. I looked down at the program and made a quiet decision. In the top right corner, beside the event time, I circled the date in ink. October 22. Our wedding date. Also the same weekend the endowment papers were signed, his idea. Symbolic synergy, he'd called it. "We didn't honeymoon," he said. "Liquidity doesn't wait." In the bedroom, my gown waited where I'd hung it carefully, ivory silk, understated neckline, long sleeves. Not dramatic, not timid. Just still. On the dresser sat the empty velvet box where my Cartier necklace used to live. It had been mine before Peter. A gift from my mother, who said, "Real gold keeps its value, even when men don't." When the tax letter arrived, $3,480 owed. Due in 10 days, I pawned it without telling him. I didn't want to see the look he made when he realized how much that number mattered. I handled it. Like I always did. Now the box stayed closed, as if the necklace might return if I just stopped opening it. The photo albums on the shelf had dust. I pulled one down, the gala from 3 years ago. Peter, in a navy tux, arm around my waist. Me laughing. The museum director beside us, proud and pink-cheeked. That night Peter whispered, "No one needs to know you wrote the entire fund copy." Then he kissed the back of my hand in public. It felt like a ribbon tied too tight. A knock at the front door broke the silence. I opened it to find a courier holding a small envelope. "Delivery for Hampton," he said. I signed. The envelope had no return address. Inside was a folded page, a printout of a transaction confirmation. Bank transfer. Museum Fund Holding LLC. Peter Hampton listed as Asset Compliance Officer. $40,000 withdrawn 6 months ago. Memo: Restoration Preview Wing. That wing was still under construction. I read it twice. It didn't say where the money went, just that it left. I folded it once, then again, pressing it into the spine of the gala program. My hands didn't shake. That came later. Upstairs, I stood in front of the mirror and clipped in the pearl studs Peter gave me on our 3rd anniversary. Not as flashy as the necklace, not as expensive. But they stayed with me. I reached for the gala program one last time and slipped it into my clutch. Not the full version, just the edited proof with the date circled. And the transaction receipt nested quietly between its pages. Before I left, I placed the velvet necklace box back on the dresser. Closed. Locked. Not in mourning, just in memory. At the valet, I gave my name to the attendant. "Julia Hampton." He scanned the list and paused. "Oh. Your husband's already arrived." Mr. Hampton and his guest just went in. "His guest?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Miss Lawton?" He said it casually, like it was common. Like he didn't just insert a crack down the center of the night. I nodded once and stepped past him. Inside the museum, the marble floors echoed under my heels. Gallery lights shimmered against glass displays. The main hall had been converted: velvet ropes, champagne towers, classical quartet playing through their set like nothing could interrupt the grace of curated money. I spotted Peter first. He was laughing. Not forced. Not distracted. The kind of laugh you give when you feel untouchable. Eloise was beside him, hair swept up in a low knot, wearing a dress I recognized from a fashion spread in Town and Country. But it was the necklace that stopped me cold. It sat there easy, heavy, right above her collarbone. The Cartier Trinity. My Trinity. My mother's, actually. Pawned. Used. Circulated through his secrets and back into the world. Now worn like a trophy by a woman who didn't know or didn't care how she got it. She wore what I sold to save him. As Julia crosses toward the press line, a museum staffer stops her to say, "Mr. Hampton requested the seating be adjusted. You'll be at a different table tonight." Peter used to tell me that trust was the most valuable currency. He said it once during a client dinner in Darien, over ribeye and rare wine I couldn't pronounce. Trust builds leverage, he smiled. Leverage builds liquidity. The man across the table had nodded, impressed. I'd smiled, too, because that was my job. Wife as certification, polished. Proof that Peter knew how to stabilize a volatile asset. I didn't realize until now how much of that philosophy applied to me. The necklace wasn't the only thing I gave up for him. 2 years ago, the roof repair was urgent. A letter from the IRS had arrived by courier, addressed to both of us but read only by me. Peter was at a summit. The tax owed wasn't some massive fraud, just negligence. Back taxes on an overseas fund he forgot to disclose. The total, $3,480, due by the 10th of the month. He didn't even see the letter. I handled it. Quietly. I thought that was love. I drove to a pawn shop 3 towns over Bridgeport, where no one knew my name. Took the Cartier necklace from its velvet box, slid it across the glass counter. The woman behind the register raised an eyebrow, ran the loop over the bands, and asked if I was sure. I said yes before I could feel anything else. She counted the bills, placed them into a slim white envelope. That envelope went into our joint account. Peter never asked where the deposit came from. The IRS check cleared. A week later he bought a Montblanc pen. Said it was a deal closer to his Waitian. Now, standing near the gala's photo backdrop, I watch him sip champagne with Eloise and laugh like everything has always been this easy. I step toward the donor list table. The printed roster is laid out for display: names, tiers, logos. At the top, Lawton Foundation, Gold Benefactor. She didn't just show up tonight. She bought her seat. Peter must have arranged the donation transfer weeks ago enough to buy her visibility and erase the friction of explanation. I run my finger down the list until I find our name. The Hampton Family Fund. Platinum Legacy Circle. Legacy. The kind that doesn't require a living wife, apparently. Someone calls my name. It's soft, hesitant. Julia? I turn. Tomas Rivera from the HOA board. We've crossed paths at a few zoning meetings. He always wears tweed that smells faintly of mint and carries a clipboard even when no one asks him to. Didn't know you'd be here, he says. My name's on the fund, I reply. He fidgets, clears his throat. Actually, that's why I was hoping to catch you. Something odd came across my desk this week. He reaches into his coat and hands me a sealed envelope. Wasn't sure if you'd already been notified. What is it? Notice of violation, he says. Technically for the Hampton property, but, well, the name on the deed's been updated. Just didn't want it to catch you off guard. He's already apologizing with his eyes. I take the envelope and slip it into my clutch. Thank you. He nods and retreats before I can ask another question. I step away from the crowd, toward the far hallway. Less curated, less camera lit. The museum's permanent collection lines the walls here: old paintings, faded frames, art that doesn't change with the seasons. Pieces that stay, that endure. In the corner is a sculpture Peter once dismissed as static. An abstract form made of twisted bronze. It had fascinated me because it didn't explain itself. You had to sit with it, let it settle. I liked things that didn't give themselves away. Apparently, I married the opposite. My phone vibrates. A text from Raquel, my friend and former colleague from when I still taught archival law at Yale. Kim, your name's still linked to the 2019 audit file. Want me to pull it? Julia, yes. Everything you can get. Quietly. R. Kim, understood. Also check your email. I open it immediately. There, attached as a PDF, is something I hadn't seen since the day I handled the pawn transaction. Invoice number A917. Date, the 4th of March 2019. Amount, $3,480. Payee, Greenwich Roofing, Restoration. Service, Emergency Repair, East Wing. Payment method, wire transfer. Notes, client Julia Hampton verified. My name. My payment. I scroll further. Raquel's note at the bottom reads. Match confirmed. Shell account routing path leads to Museum Fund Holding LLC. Funds moved within 7 days to Peter Hampton controlled entity. Will forward documentation. Everything I suspected now had paperwork. I saved the file to a secure folder and locked my screen. Back in the main hall, the camera flashes were still going. Peter stood at center, arms relaxed, perfect posture. Eloise beside him, her hand now looped through his arm. Her necklace caught the light again. I didn't need to reclaim it. I already had the receipt. I traded heirlooms for silence. He spent it on charm. Julia steps outside to call Raquel, but before she speaks, she sees a social media notification. The museum's official account has just posted a photo. Peter and Eloise. Caption, Power, Legacy, and Vision are platinum benefactors at tonight's gala. The air inside the donor hall is gold. Not metaphorically. Literally. Gold-toned lights strung in crisscross lattices overhead. Gold-framed paintings lit just so. Gold foil cocktail napkins printed with the museum's crest. Even the champagne flutes shimmer in warm metallic tones. It's a room designed to flatter wealth. A place where everything reflects just enough to make you forget who's looking at who. I walk back toward the main floor with slow, controlled steps. No one notices I've been gone. That's the beauty of a curated disappearance. You get to choose your re-entry. Eloise is near the west wall, chatting with the young curator in charge of the restoration wing. Her laugh lands a beat late, like someone learning lines she didn't write. I position myself just behind a column, visible if you're looking but not if you're used to people looking at you. The curator gestures to her necklace. That's a gorgeous piece. Cartier? She smiles. Oh, just something Peter picked up for me. Picked up. I wonder if that's what pawn slips count as now. Pick up receipts. She doesn't know I'm watching her fingers touch something that once sat in a velvet box on my nightstand. Doesn't realize that it's not just jewelry, it's an object of record. A time-stamped trade. The kind of evidence that doesn't blink. The gala director steps onto a small riser and taps a mic. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment. Chatter dips. Glasses pause midair. We are thrilled to welcome you all to this year's benefit, celebrating the upcoming completion of the Lawton Hampton Restoration Wing. As many of you know, this project would not be possible without the generosity of our platinum benefactors. Applause swells. Peter takes his cue and lifts his glass. The director continues. Please join me in thanking Peter Hampton and Eloise Lawton, whose vision, passion, and commitment to heritage preservation have inspired us all. The camera flash pops. A ripple of clapping. Peter steps forward, nodding with the ease of a man who thinks he deserves credit for not dropping the glass. Eloise curtsies, slightly cute, performative. The necklace gleams. I step forward, into full view. For a split second, Peter's face doesn't move. Then eyebrows lift. Mouth forms a half smile. The one he uses during interviews when a journalist asks something too personal. He's spinning already. Jules, he says, tilting toward me like we're partners in this production. Didn't expect you to make it after all. I'm a donor, remember? I say, holding up the folded program in my hand. Family fund. Platinum tier. A few heads turn. Of course, he says, come join us. I don't move. Instead, I hold out the program to the woman next to me, an older patron I vaguely recognize from last year's trustee dinner. Would you mind giving this to the press photographer? I ask. Just hand it to him. She looks puzzled but nods. Takes it, walks across the floor. Peter is watching now. He sees the red circle on the program's cover. He knows what it means. I mouth, October 22. Our wedding date. Behind me, the photographer receives the program and flips it open. Frowns. Snaps a shot of it, instinctively. Another flash. Eloise steps slightly behind Peter now, uncertain. A beat pass. Then I turn slowly and walk away. I don't need a mic. I don't need to shout. Because spectacle is a currency in this room, and I've just cashed in. In the hallway, I pass a staff table where place cards are being organized. A young assistant stops me. Mrs. Hampton? I nod. I just wanted to confirm your seat, she says. There's been a last-minute change. Change? Yes, Mr. Hampton requested it. You've been moved from table 1 to. Let me see. She checks the clipboard. Table 9. By the south exit. Table 9 is the overflow table, where junior staff or minor press are seated, where there are no wine pairings or direct sightlines to the stage. I smile. Actually, I'll be taking my seat somewhere else. I walk past her and drop my name card into a floral arrangement near the sculpture wing. It lands between a white rose and a sprig of eucalyptus. In the restroom, I find silence. Cold tile and perfect lighting. I text Raquel. Julia, he moved me to table 9. Confirm Shell links for Lawton donation? R. Kim confirmed. Donation routed from Shell. Source, Hampton Restoration Fund. He's laundering donor credit. Julia, he's not just betraying me. He's betraying tax code. R. Kim. Ready when you are. I take a breath and check the mirror. No smudged lipstick, no cracked voice. Just a woman standing still in the quiet eye of a public storm. Back in the gallery, the quartet has shifted to something slow and string-heavy. People are sitting. Toasts being given. Laughter warm but more fragmented now. A museum board member approaches me near the drink table. Was that? She gestures back toward the photo area. Your necklace? It was, I say. She leans in. Well, you wear silence like armor. I tilt my glass in her direction. Not silence, I reply. Strategy. The humiliation wasn't in being replaced. It was being erased. There's not when it is white. Julia receives a forwarded image from a social media account. A press photographer's snap, Eloise, Peter, the necklace. And Julia's red-circled wedding date in the foreground. The caption? New face of Fairfield legacy, power, grace, and generational vision. And below that, a comment from someone anonymous. Wasn't that necklace hers? When betrayal shows up, it doesn't arrive loud. It slips in through a message preview. Unknown number. This you? I'm standing by the abstract bronze sculpture when the photo loads. Peter. Eloise. Mid-laugh. Her hand tucked into the crook of his arm like they'd been sculpted that way. The lighting is softer than at the Gala Gold but diffused shadows longer. They're standing in front of the Restoration Wing plaque. The timestamp reads, 3:42 p.m. today. 3 hours before the doors open to the public. So this wasn't their first photo of the night. It was just the first one they expected to share. I zoom in. Eloise is holding a flute already, a soft blush on her cheeks. She's wearing the necklace. Again, still. Behind them, just barely visible in the photo, is the corner of a marble placard. I recognize the engraved text from when I proofed the museum copy. Legacy is what you build in the silence between generations. I wrote that line. Peter submitted it with his name. I glance around. The donors are circulating like polished clockwork, no one rushing, no one out of place. Peter and Eloise are still at the front of the room, their expressions untouched by the truth quietly unraveling beneath their feet. This wasn't carelessness. This was design. They came early. Took the photo before I arrived. Positioned themselves in front of the new plaque, knowing the press would ask for a story later. Preceded alibi. Strategic affection. Fake history. Public proof of a lie with no visible timestamp unless someone knew to look. Someone like me. I slide my phone into my clutch and turn back toward the exit hall, where the archived photo wall begins. On it, past donors, past galas, grainy prints of smiling couples from the 90 seconds. Near the bottom is our photo, Peter and I. 3 years ago. Black tie. Smiling. Younger but not by much. What's different now isn't age. It's the absence of what I didn't know back then. Back then I thought elegance was protection. That if I wore the right dress, said the right line, delivered the right copy for his legacy, he'd stay inside the truth I helped him build. Now I know the truth doesn't keep people in. It only records when they leave. I step out into the courtyard for air. The night is cooler now, the autumn wind skimming over the stone benches and museum columns. The kind of chill that makes you feel sharp, focused. I pull my coat tighter around me and check my phone again. Kim, did you see the photo? Julia, 3 hours early. She's in the necklace. Kim, we need to talk. That preview photo lines up with the fund transfer timestamp. He staged it. Julia, send me the financials. Kim, just did. Check your private email. I log in. A new PDF, Greenwich Restoration Fund. Transfers, XY Audit Trail. I scroll. Arling Arsenyen Luya Arger. Amount, Arbaim, Efes. From the Hampton Family Fund, Legacy Operating Budget. To Museum Fund Holding LLC. Memo, Donor Partnership Preview. Requested by Peter Hampton. Co-signature. Blank. I exhale slowly. That $40,000 donation was supposed to fund restoration lighting. According to Raquel's notes, it was rerouted through a Delaware shell and used to secure a temporary endowment placement for the Lawton Foundation. In simpler terms, Peter funneled money through my family's legacy fund to elevate Eloise as a public donor. He didn't just cheat. He laundered her into the legacy. Back inside, the event is shifting toward dinner. Candlelight flares from every table. Murmurs become deeper. The acoustics settle into warmth. I don't sit. I walk toward the sculpture wing away from the sound and stop by a glass case at the edge of the hall. Inside is a late 18th century compass. Gilded, cracked but still elegant. It doesn't point north anymore. The label reads, recovered from the wreckage of a ship that disappeared from record for 20 years. A voice behind me says, I thought you'd left. I turn. Peter. Hands in his pockets. Jacket open. That performance smile softened just enough to pass as sincerity. I needed air, I reply. He walks closer, slow. Everyone's asking about you. Because I'm the wife, or because I'm the missing line item. He pauses. That flicker of confusion or maybe guilt passes behind his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? I smile. Not bitter. Not sad. Just done. You'll figure it out, I say. Eventually. I walk past him and back into the noise. At my place setting table 9, still untouched, I find a folded napkin, a name card that reads Mrs. Julia Hampton, and a wine pairing list that has nothing I want. I take the name card and flip it over. On the back, I write, she can keep the necklace. I kept the receipt. Then I tuck it into the silverware roll and leave the table. Betrayal never shows up alone, it brings witnesses and timestamps. Julia walks through the side hallway to the staff stairwell. She dials Raquel. 1 ring. 2. Then, he used the prenup fund for her public profile. Raquel says. And the shell? Julia asks. It's paper thin. If we push, he loses control of the deed. Julia doesn't answer. She's already pulling out the printed copy of invoice number A917. I've learned there are 3 types of evidence. What's visible, what's traceable, and what no one expects you kept. I kept everything. In the quiet of the museum's back hallway, just beyond the sculpture wing where no one from the benefit dares wander. I sit alone on a bench meant for docents between shifts. A bronze plaque overhead says closed exhibit, renovation in progress. Fitting. I slide the printed invoice from my clutch. Number A917. It's still crisp despite its age, creased only once across the center. I remember the day I printed it. The ink was low. The light in the office flickered every time the dishwasher kicked on. I'd just gotten off the phone with the IRS, who'd confirmed our owed balance, $3,480, due by the 10th. I didn't tell Peter. He was in Dallas, closing an opportunity. I covered it quietly. Because at the time, I believed that kind of silence was part of love. Now I understand it was the first draft of erasure. Invoice number A917. Greenwich Roofing and Restoration. Client, Julia Hampton. Date, 03,000 and 4,219. Amount, $3,480. Service, emergency roof repair. Payment, direct transfer, verified. A fabricated service. A fake expense. And a shell vendor Peter had registered months before. I open my laptop and cue the cross-reference search Raquel sent me. Match. Invoice number a 917 routing code Bank of Fairfield Holding Co. Transfer path. Museum Fund Holding LLC. Final endpoint. Greenwich Shell Co. Registered owner. Peter Hampton. No real roof work. No restoration. Just a pawned necklace turned into laundered favor cash. He repackaged my sacrifice as a capital injection. I click open the property deed transfer record, next one I didn't know existed until Raquel flagged it. The Shell Company owns a townhouse. Address, 143 Brighton Lane. Greenwich. Current occupant, E. Lawton. Purchase date, the 12th of October 2023. Transfer authority, Museum Fund Holding LLC Shell Co. Deed notes, gifting for legal privacy. That's not privacy. That's concealment with ribbon tape. I call Raquel. She picks up instantly. Talk to me, she says. It's real, I say. Invoice A917 links directly to the Shell. The routing code is continuous. I ran the HOA chain, she replies. That Brighton Lane property was removed from joint marital designation the same month you pawned the necklace. I say nothing for a beat. Then he used my asset to anchor hers. Raquel's voice sharpens. You want to trigger the clause? Paravarba, I confirm. No commingling of legacy funds, personal gifts, or joint domicile holdings under marital shell structures. That's exact language. Intoso. And the invoice? I ask. It's the match strike, she says. It dates the fraud. Establishes your gift as converted value. That makes the necklace traceable, not sentimental. It's evidence. I smile. A real one, this time. Then let's build the fire. Back in the event space, the band has shifted into slow jazz. Dinner plates clink gently. The auctioneer is preparing the paddle set. Peter stands near the gallery entrance, hands folded like a CEO before a boardroom, chatting with the museum's CFO and a city councilman whose family owns half of Darien. I make no effort to be discreet now. I walk directly toward the front table. "C'est mais too late." "Hey," he says, casual and firm. "Everything okay?" I pull the invoice from my clutch and lay it flat on the linen-covered table. He stares at it. It takes him longer than it should to remember what it is. "You really kept that?" he says, tone half amusement, half disbelief. "Kept?" I echo. "No. I filed it." There's a pause. A fractional second where he realizes I'm no longer in the role he wrote for me. "Julia." Invoice, a 917. I cut in. $3,480. For a fake roof job you used to redirect funds through a shell. His nostrils flare. "You don't know what you're talking about." "No?" I ask. "Then let's subpoena the Museum Fund Holding LLC. He blinks. No witty pivot. No hand on my arm. I lean in. "I followed the money. From my necklace to your invoice. From your shell to her deed. Every cent catalogued." He says nothing. Just stares. "You shouldn't have used my name on the invoice," I add. "That was sloppy." The councilman politely excuses himself. The CFO follows, his mouth a straight line. Peter is still. Does Eloise know she lives in property registered under stolen marital funds? "Julia. You replaced me with a younger reflection of your ambitions," I say. "But you forgot mirrors don't notarize." "I didn't lose the necklace. I traded it for truth. Justin requestin with the re." I walk away without waiting for a reply. This time people do notice. Whispers travel faster than sound in rooms like this. Faster than betrayal. But not faster than evidence. As I approach the exit stairwell, my phone buzzes. Kim, invoice matched. Shell ID verified. Clause Section 4B trigger initiated. Julia, ETA to injunction? Kim, working on it. But Julia, what? Kim, you're not the assistant anymore. You're the record. I pause outside the double doors, hand on the railing. Yes, that's exactly what I am now. Not the wife. Not the betrayed. The record. The one thing Peter can't revise. Julia pulls out a second folded document, an early draft of their prenup agreement. She flips to the clause she had once overlooked, Section 4B, now underlined. And beside it, in her own handwriting from 5 years ago. Only fools sign what they don't plan to read. She smiles. This time it does reach her eyes. Power doesn't shout. It files forms. That's what Raquel always says. And tonight, I'm watching her do it in real time. We're not at the museum anymore. That part's done. Now we're in the corner booth of a 24-hour diner in downtown Stamford. The type with weak lighting and chrome napkin dispensers, where real things happen under the sound of clinking mugs. It's midnight, and my gown feels like a costume I haven't earned in years. The seat across from me holds Raquel, hair tied back, laptop open, sleeves rolled, and her eyes sharper than anything I wore to that gala. The check lies unopened between us. What's open is power. She turns the screen toward me. Here, she says. I cross-referenced the Greenwich Shell Company's EIN with museum financials. On the screen is a web of linked LLCs. At the center is a familiar name. Museum Fund Holding LLC. From there, it spiders out 6 Shell accounts, 3 Delaware incorporated entities, 1 trust disguised as a heritage grant initiative, and 2 properties. One of them? 143 Brighton Lane. The townhouse Eloise lives in. The one purchased under my name, then quietly reassigned through internal fund transfers Peter thought no one would trace. He split the original deed using a legal loophole in the restoration fund, Raquel says. Then slid your share through a shell, had it reappear under hers as a donor leaseback. Like laundering property through charity, I say. Exactly. And the invoice I paid. The trigger, she confirms. It proves marital conversion of assets, which makes the shell vulnerable under fraud doctrine. And the prenup. Raquel clicks. Pulls up a scanned PDF. My signature, Peter's, and beneath it all, the clause we never thought we'd invoke. Section 4. B. No joint marital assets may be commingled with personal holdings disguised through third-party legal entities without notarized disclosure by both spouses. Failure to comply constitutes grounds for immediate material dispute. You're invoking it tonight? I ask. Raquel smirks. Already did. The claim's been filed with Connecticut Family Holdings Arbitration. Arbitration moves faster than civil. I sit back. The diner clatter seems distant now, silverware on porcelain, laughter at another table. None of it touches me. I sip my now cold coffee. He used to say you were too intense, I tell her. Raquel lifts an eyebrow. And now? Now I call that precision. She turns the screen again. This is the HOA doc, she says. The one Tomas gave you. That wasn't a formality. It was a trigger document. I lean forward. The document is titled, HOA Notice of Occupancy Violation. Filed, the 2nd of July 2020. Violation. Unauthorized guest access, non-resident. Registered name, Julia Hampton. Amended ownership record. Removed co-registrant, Peter Hampton. I blink. He removed his name in 2020. Correct. During the pandemic, when no one was looking. He listed the property as exclusive marital domicile under your name, probably for tax sheltering, then removed himself to conceal the paper trail. Seen Saints Formation Agents Hapses. But if it's in my name, why is she living there? Because he used the shell to create a leaseback on a property you legally still own. Raquel taps the screen. They think it's theirs because they hold the front-facing deed. But they don't own the root file. You do. There's a long pause. Then Raquel leans back and folds her arms. Julia, this isn't just a divorce. I know. This is legacy theft. I nod once. I'm ready. Kane Tadi. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a thin leather folder. Inside is a notarized copy of the arbitration filing. My name in bold at the top. Claimant, Julia Hampton. Respondent, Peter Hampton. Nature, breach of prenuptial agreement. Clause Section 4, B, fraud and commingled legacy assets. She places a pen on top. I need you to sign. I don't hesitate. I press my name into the line. Clean, centered, final. My phone buzzes again. A forwarded message from the Greenwich Donor Registry. The subject line reads, Donor Profile Reclassification. Notification. I open it. It confirms the removal of Peter Hampton from the Platinum tier list pending donor audit. Attached, the profile photo from tonight's gala. Eloise in the necklace. Peter mid-speech. And in the background, barely visible, a red circle drawn on a folded program. My circle. My signature. My record. He hid fraud inside philanthropy. They always applaud theft if it's dressed well. I close the email. Across the table, Raquel smiles at me like she's seeing the version of me Peter spent years trying to contain. I always knew you were the sharp one, she says. He thought quiet meant soft, I reply. We both raise our coffee cups and toast to that. A short while later, we step out into the night. The air smells like wet concrete and leaf mulch. That crisp Connecticut autumn burn clean, honest, cold. I exhale and let it bite. Raquel turns to me. You want to stop by the Brighton property tomorrow? Yes, I say. But I'm not going to knock. No? I shake my head. I'm just going to change the locks. As Raquel drives off, Julia receives an alert from the Family Trust portal. Notification. A new beneficiary access request has been submitted. Name, Eloise Lawton. Request type. Spousal donor access. Authorization contact. Peter Hampton. Julia doesn't react. She simply taps decline. Then, in the notes box, she types denied, fraud pending, and presses submit. There's a myth that betrayal explodes. Sometimes it does. But more often it unfolds. In a click. In a document served at 8:01 a.m. In a key that no longer fits a lock you assumed was yours. This morning, Peter learns what that feels like. 7:57 a.m. 143 Brighton Lane, Greenwich. Peter steps out onto the front stoop in athletic wear. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other. His expression is mid-scroll when he notices the man in uniform standing beside the gate. Mr. Hampton? The officer asks. Yes, Peter replies slowly. The officer hands him a sealed envelope. Notice of occupancy suspension. Filed. By owner, Julia Hampton. Effective. Immediately, 143 Brighton Lane. Peter blinks. There must be a mistake. No mistake, sir, the officer replies. Your name isn't on the deed. Owner's request was verified this morning. You're listed as tenant without lease. That's no my ding Stan. Peter starts to protest, but the officer continues, calm and practiced. Standard protocol. 30 minutes to vacate. Locks will be changed by 9. Peter lowers his coffee. I funded this property. No, sir, the officer says, now lifting a second envelope. According to these documents, the funding originated from Hampton Legacy Fund assets, traced to a protected marital account. And that's when it happens. Not an explosion. Not a scream. Just the slow collapse of certainty. 08:16 a.m., Julia's home. I'm barefoot, sitting at the kitchen counter in a sweatshirt I forgot I loved. The coffee machine is working again. So is the silence. My phone buzzes once. Greenwich Hoa. Subject. Compliance. Confirmation. 143 Brighton Lane locks rekeyed. Occupants removed without incident. Titles secured. I take another sip of coffee. Then, Greenwich Donor Board. Subject. Audit trigger. Hampton gift misclassification. Eloise Lawton's profile suspended pending donor source review. Hampton Fund grant flagged as ineligible under joint declaration terms. Then, Family Holdings arbitration portal. Subject. Hampton v. Hampton. Respondent delivery confirmed. Response due within 72 hours. Clause Section 4B in active review. Each message like a gavel not slamming, but tapping steady and official. Not revenge. Restoration. 10:02 a.m. Julia's attorney's office. Raquel stands at the whiteboard in her office, using a red marker to connect the 3 triangles we've been building. Donor fund misuse. Shell property diversion. Prenup clause breach. Each corner lines up with a scanned exhibit number. Exhibit A. The necklace invoice, a 917. Exhibit B. The HOA occupancy violation. Exhibit C. The trust fund routing statement. All 3 institutions have corroborated, Raquel says, drawing a final line between the nodes. We're filing for pre-litigation mediation by Friday, but if he doesn't settle, he'll try to stall, I say. She nods, which is why I already submitted a public correction request. 4. The museum plaque. I blink. You didn't. Raquel grins. Oh, I did. She pulls up a screenshot of the museum's website. Correction pending. Legacy wing. Attribution under review. Beneath it, the old text. With gratitude to Peter Hampton and Eloise Lawton for their visionary support. Followed by the placeholder. Revision under legal consideration. They're scrubbing him out? I ask. No. She says. They're freezing him, until the audit's over. And me? You're the original donor listed in 2019 under the endowment schedule. You never rescinded it. You're still the record. 11:33 a.m. outside the museum. I walk along the same path we once strolled after the first gala, the path with the marble benches, the plaque at the entrance. The original quote is still there. Legacy is what you build in the silence between generations. Peter submitted it. I wrote it. The museum just requested confirmation of authorship. I sent them the time-stamped email from my archived account this morning. Subject line, wing text draft. Sent, the 22nd of October 2019. The day we signed our prenup. 12:21 nachmittags. Peter's voicemail. His voice sounds different now. Controlled but unsure. Julia. I've gotten a few notices. This isn't you. This is Raquel. It's legal bullying. We need to talk. Let's be civil about this. We can fix the misunderstanding. I don't respond. Because it's not a misunderstanding. It's a record. 1:10 p.m. Fairfield County Trust's office. A fax comes in. The clerk at the counter hands it to me. It's confirmation of Peter's revoked access to the Hampton Trust digital portal. His login has been disabled. All notifications now route through me. His name is pending full removal pending outcome of clause section 4B. He'll fight it. Of course. But he'll lose. Because while Peter was building a reputation out of impression, I was keeping documentation. He called it elegance. I called it evidence. Later that afternoon, I return home. The sun is sharp, cold. October in Connecticut always has an edge to it, beautiful and blunt. I pass the front hall mirror. The same one I used to pause in before benefits, events, board meetings. Now I stop for a different reason. I open the drawer beneath it. Inside is the velvet box. I don't need to open it. I already know it's empty. I already know what it cost. And what it bought. As Julia walks away from the mirror, her phone dings. A new voicemail, this time from a reporter at the Connecticut Ledger. Miss Hampton, I believe we have a situation with the Lawton family endowment and the museum audit. I'd love a quote, if you're ready to speak. Julia smiles faintly. She doesn't return the call. Not yet. Some stories are better told in court first. Some endings don't need applause. Only documentation. 7:42 p.m. Julia's home. There's no storm outside. No slammed doors. No fight at midnight. Just the soft hum of the printer in my home office. Page by page, the divorce packet feeds through. The header reads, Hampton v. Hampton, motion to enforce clause section 4B. Material misrepresentation. Asset commingling. Public misconduct. I don't add anything handwritten to the papers. No notes in the margins. No angry underlines. The pages already speak. Each line is a reversal. Every submission, a dismantling of what Peter thought would stand unchallenged. I print 2 copies, one for the court, one for him. I've already packed the courier envelope. Inside, the signed arbitration motion, a USB drive with the fund misappropriation timeline, a letter from Raquel, clinical and correct, and one final item, a glossy 4x6 print of the museum gala photo, the one where Eloise wears my necklace. Peter lifts his glass, and in the blurry background, a folded program lies open with a red circle drawn over the date. October 22. Our anniversary. The caption I've added, typed and centered beneath the photo. False legacy is still theft. I seal the envelope. Place it on the entryway table. It'll be picked up at 9 a.m. sharp. Peter will open it the next day, likely while wearing a pressed shirt and forcing an espresso he no longer enjoys. He'll try to dismiss the contents at first. But by the time he reaches the signature line, he'll know. I'm not angry. I'm done. I walk through the house slowly, not out of nostalgia but ritual. This place holds none of his fingerprints anymore. The family photos are gone, stored away, not burned. The wine glasses from our anniversary trip to Bordeaux. Donated. His grandfather's cufflinks. Returned to the estate. I wanted no arguments. No keepsakes. I stop in the guest bedroom. Inside the closet are the few things I haven't yet touched. His emergency tuxedo. A pair of loafers he used to wear on museum nights. The cashmere overcoat he always left hanging but never wore. I place them in a box, close the lid and write one word in black Sharpie. Irrelevant. Then I leave it by the door. If he wants it, he can send someone to pick it up. He won't. Men like Peter don't retrieve what they discarded. They simply reinvent what replaced it. 10:04 de l'après-midi Raquel's email. Subject. Last signature processed. Court will confirm dissolution within 3 business days. Arbitration clause accepted. All asset freezes now active. He'll be notified tomorrow. P.S. Check your trust inbox. Something new came in. I log in. A fresh notification. Hampton Legacy Trust. Primary beneficiary title. Transferred from Peter Hampton Julia Hampton. Date of effective reclassification. The 23rd of October 2025. Control of distribution schedule. Exclusive. There's a message box beneath the official record. I click it open. It's a saved draft. Dated years ago. From my father. If this ever reaches you alone, you'll know why I structured it this way. Protecting legacy doesn't always look like honor. Sometimes it looks like withdrawal. The great rotation. And the 60 favor pays. Don't apologize for surviving people who misused your silence. I close the message. Not because I can't read it again. But because I already have. Too many times. 11:30 p.m. Drive to Brighton Lane. I don't go to confront him. There's nothing left to say. But I park across the street from the townhouse, my townhouse, and wait for the light to go off. At 11:48 p.m., the living room darkens. 30 seconds later, Peter steps out onto the front porch. He's not wearing shoes. Not angry. Just pacing. Confused. There's a paper in his hand. Maybe the HOA letter. Maybe the deed reversal. He glances up, sensing the cold but not the cause. I watch from the shadows of my car. I don't need him to see me. This isn't for drama. This is for record. I don't need him to know I left. I only need the system to say so. 12:03 a.m. Home again. I make tea. I sit by the window. And for the first time in months, I don't open a spreadsheet, a legal brief or an invoice. I open a blank document. Title. My name isn't his legacy. Not a memoir. Not revenge. Just the truth. In sequence. With footnotes. As Julia closes the laptop, another email appears in her inbox. Subject. Interview request. New York Weekly Financials. Miss Hampton, we are preparing a feature on female fund founders reasserting control over misdirected legacies. We believe your story deserves a national stage. Would you consider speaking, off record or not? Julia doesn't answer, but she does open a folder on her desktop. Inside, documents for record, unedited. Every invoice. Every clause. Every timestamp. Labeled in order. Ready. 7:02 a.m. Daylight in Stamford. There's no music. No voiceover. No montage of what was lost. Just a glass of cold water, a clean inbox, and a document titled, Final Distribution, Arbitration Resolved. Docket number 049818 Julia Hampton. Status closed. Beneficiary control, confirmed. Deed ownership, confirmed. Prenup clause paragraph V. Upheld. Museum record, reattributed. Closure isn't loud. It's digital. 7:15 a.m. Email from the museum board. Subject, correction confirmed, Hampton Restoration Wing. Dear Miss Hampton, we confirm that your name has been restored as the founding donor. We have suspended all pending donor credits for Mr. Hampton until further legal resolution. The Wing's official record now lists. Endowed by Julia Hampton 2019. Below is an updated plaque mock-up. My name, etched in serif, centered. I stare at it for a long time. I don't feel triumphant. I feel documented. 8:03 a.m. HOA system message. Occupancy verification completed. Property, 143 Brighton Lane. Status. Sole ownership, Julia Hampton. Access, Exclusive. Locks changed. Digital registry updated. Former tenants removed. It's mine again. Not for nostalgia. For justice. I don't need to live there. I just need it returned, correctly attributed. 8:45 a.m. text from Raquel. Check your trust account. And your legacy file. Now, I open both. First, the trust. A new balance. 7 digits. Secure, controlled. Sole signatory, me. Then, a red icon flashing inside the legal document vault. Irrevocable archive established. Meaning? The prenup, the invoice trail, the shell transfers, the HOA letters. All of it is now permanently filed within a federal legal trust archive. Unalterable. Uneditable. Unerasable. Peter can spin press releases. Eloise can delete her social media. But the record holds. 9:22 vormittags. Julia's kitchen. I stand at the window, coffee in hand, as leaves scatter across the slate patio. In the distance, a neighbor's dog barks. I don't flinch. I don't replay. I don't chase emotional noise. For once, there's no story trying to write itself around me. No narrative being controlled by someone else. I'm not someone's wife. Not someone's stepping stone. Not the support beam for a legacy I didn't co-sign. I'm the ledger. The proof. The name that stayed while the lie collapsed. I open my laptop. There's a fresh email from the New York Weekly Financials editor. Subject. Following up national feature. Miss Hampton, we'd still love to speak with you. Off the record. On your terms. No rush. I don't answer. Not yet. Instead, I open the folder labeled Narrative Reclamation. Personal use only. Inside, every document. Every image. Every receipt. Every red circle. I scroll through them like old photos, not of grief, but of proof. And I add one more. A selfie. Not for vanity. Just for record. Unfiltered. No makeup. Hair up. Expression neutral. Caption. This is what correction looks like. Some stories don't need endings. They just need records that can't be deleted. 12 nachmittags. Digital courtroom dashboard. Case status resolved. Final decision filed. In favor of claimant, Julia Hampton. All disputed assets reattributed. All protective clauses activated. Legacy trust control permanently reassigned. Respondent found in material breach of Section 4. B. No appeals. No delays. Just verdict. Like a ledger closing. With nothing left unpaid. 4:40 p.m. outgoing message to Raquel. Julia. Not revenge. Just removal. R. Kim. That's always the cleanest win. That evening, I walk into the Greenwich Gallery alone. Not for an event. Just to visit. There's a docent I've never met. She greets me warmly. Would you like to see the new plaque? She asks. I nod. She leads me down the corridor toward the restoration wing. We stop before the wall. It reads, The Julia Hampton Gallery, founded 2019. With enduring gratitude to her record-keeping, vision, and support of historical integrity. There's no signature. Just a final line in small script. Beneath the bronze border. Legacy is what you preserve when memory fails. She turns to me. Beautiful words. Do you know who wrote it? I smile. Yes, I say. She's finally listed correctly. As Julia steps outside, her phone buzzes again. One final message. Peter Hampton. You win. She doesn't reply. She deletes the message. Then opens a note on her phone. Title. Inheritance doesn't excuse theft. First line. The thing about old money. It counts on no one reading the footnotes. She begins to write. For herself. Not for the court. Not for the press. Not for him. Just for record. 4:42 p.m. Norwalk, Connecticut. The weather is soft and gray. Not heavy. Not sad. Just clean. Unadorned. I haven't been back to this place in years. The museum is smaller than I remembered. Everything is. The restoration wing feels almost residential. Less like a monument, more like an honest record. It's strange how spaces warp around the people we once brought with us. Peter always made this place feel larger, like everything had to be a performance, a handshakable legacy. Now, without him, it feels legible. like walking through a paper trail of curated silence. I move slowly past the exhibit plaques. The donor walls have been updated. His name is gone from them now. It's not replaced by mine, not directly. It's just corrected. It doesn't say Peter and Julia Hampton anymore. It says, Restoration Endowment Initiated. Julia Hampton, 2019. Legacy Trustee. Finalized October 2025. And below that, in smaller print, records verified by the Donor History Integrity Commission. I pause. Not because I need confirmation, but because there's peace in neutrality. It isn't applause. It's truth. I walk past the glass case. The one that used to hold a rotating collection of late 19th century preservation tools. There's a new exhibit now. A minimalist installation titled, Impression Without Ownership. A plaque reads, On display are objects donated anonymously to honor the tension between what we preserve and what we let go. Inside the case, a single vintage bracelet. A blank book with dog-eared pages. A velvet box with no contents. I stare at it for a while. Not because I think it's mine, but because I know what it used to hold. Flashback 2019. We were in this exact hallway. I had just signed over a portion of my inheritance to co-fund the Hampton Restoration Fund. I'd written the memo. I'd sourced the exhibit tie-in. Peter had placed his hand on my back and whispered, You'll never regret tying your name to something beautiful. I did regret it. For a while. But now I know I didn't tie my name to him. I tied it to accuracy. The record corrected him, not me. Back in the present, I reached the final alcove. A quiet, arched space with one marble bench. This is where we used to take donor photos. There's still a gallery frame on the wall. Empty. Waiting for the next. For the first time, I sit down not as a wife, or a sponsor, or a person being posed. Just as someone who survived the edit. Cinq quatre de l'après-midi Julia's private memoir note. I'm sitting in the place where he posed me for a photo that was never mine. I used to feel like the backdrop. Like my silence was the canvas he painted his myth on. Now I feel nothing. Not numbness. Just accuracy. A small child runs past the arch. A docent follows, whispering a polite reminder not to touch the walls. I smile at them both. There was a time when I thought legacy meant permanence. Now I understand it means clarity. It means letting the false permanence expire on its own. 5:17 p.m. Final hallway. On the wall, there's a quote printed above the exit arch. It used to be attributed to Peter. Now it's simply anonymous. Legacy is not what you own. It's what survives editing. I take a photo. Not for posting. Not for filing. Just for me. And then I open my notes app, and add one line to my document titled, Narrative Reclamation, Unpublished. Line 64. He took the photo. I kept the timestamp. This place doesn't hurt anymore. It's just where the record ends cleanly. 6:04 p.m. Parking lot. As I unlock my car, there's a voicemail from Raquel. Auditor from the Donor Commission called. Final ruling stands. Your record is sealed. His corrections were denied. No appeal filed. I don't call her back yet. I just sit behind the wheel and let that sentence settle. Your record is sealed. Not silenced. Sealed. There's a difference. One is erasure. The other is architecture. Before I pull away, I glance down at my phone. A new message flashes. Subject, Invitation to speak. Yale Trust's Symposium. Miss Hampton, we would be honored if you would deliver a keynote on fund integrity, archival honesty, and narrative correction. Your work is already circulating in legal education circles. I reread the last line. Your work is circulating. Not your story. Not your heartbreak. Your work. That's the only recognition I'll ever need. 8:06 a.m. Yale Law Auditorium. The lights overhead are soft. No spotlights, no podium. Just a low wooden table and a single wireless mic. Raquel sits in the front row, tablet in hand, barely blinking. I stand beside the panelist name card. Julia Hampton, founder, Hampton Archive of Financial Integrity. It's strange to see the word founder there. Not wife. Not victim. Not former. Just origin. I clear my throat and step into the space. It's not a speech. I didn't write anything performative. Only facts. And footnotes. 3 years ago, a museum plaque misattributed a $2.5 restoration fund to someone who didn't create it. That person was my husband. The misattribution wasn't just a clerical error. It was an intentional distortion of legal records, estate funding, and reputational inheritance. I'm not here to recount my divorce. I'm here to explain the systems he exploited to make legacy theft feel like legacy creation. There's no shifting in the room, no fidgeting. Only pens, recording devices, and eyes locked forward. He used marital blind spots, shared passwords, overlapping trusts, donor shell companies, and prestige laundering. But the system didn't fail me. The system worked because I documented everything. Behind me, the screen flashes with a digital chart. Invoice, Enyv sent Decept. Shell transfer #5. Hampton Fund to Eloise LLC. Prenup clause paragraph arba. Enforcement path. HOA filing date. Shevashtayim Elfayim Ve'esrim. And then, final title reversal. Fund attribution correction. October 2025. I turn back to the room. People say betrayal is emotional. But theft isn't always rage. Sometimes, it's silence in a tuxedo. Smiling over champagne. That's why I don't tell my story as a victim. I tell it as a record keeper. Twice. Raquel gives the smallest nod approval, not pride. She told me once. Power isn't control. It's evidence. Today, I finally understand what she meant. 10:31 a.m., outside the auditorium. I stand in the courtyard. There's a breeze, dry and clean. 2 students approach, each carrying law journals. One pauses beside me. She's maybe 24. Miss Hampton? She asks. Do you have time for a question? I smile. Only if it's not about him. She laughs. It's not. She opens a folder. I want to build a record-keeping service for donor endowments. Something tamper-proof. What system did you use for your archive? A system did you use for your archive? I nod once. Truth. With a timestamp. 12:42 p.m. Stamford, Connecticut. Back home, I upload the full Yale keynote to a private drive. The file is titled Legacy. Authorship. Final. Mauve. I don't share it yet. Not because I'm scared. Because I'm free. Free to choose when, and if, it's ever released. That's the real power. Not the story. The control of the file. Email from the Connecticut Ledger. Subject. Formal follow-up. Miss Hampton, we've noticed your recent archival filing appears in the Supreme Trust records. Would you be open to a profile on women who own the narrative after misuse? I hover over reply. Then archive the message. Not because I'm hiding. Because I don't owe them clarity I already claimed for myself. Toi de l'après-midi Legacy Archive. I return to the digital vault. Every file in its folder. Every receipt named. I open one final doc. Document title. Correction Request Museum Plaque. 2019 Misattribution. Beneath it. My original typed submission. This is not a matter of bitterness. It is a matter of record. Please update the plaque to reflect historical truth. Fund initiated and fully executed by Julia Hampton. Signed. J. H. I scroll down to the museum's reply. Correction accepted. Plaque revised. Legacy restored. 3 lines. That's the ending. Not a monologue. Not a confrontation. Not a scream. Just correction. He stole my name to build a future. I rebuilt my name to end his fiction. 5:15 p.m. Julia's home. I light a candle in the kitchen. It's not for ambience. It's for celebration. Not of being alone. Of being unaltered. I pull out a crisp archival box from the closet. The label reads, Julia Hampton, Master Record Copy, unedited. It contains no photos. No jewelry. No letters. Only documents. Only truth. Mini epilogue, emotional climax. Later that night, I upload a 1-line note to the archive. File name. Final. TXT. Content. I didn't win by leaving. I won by being the last person allowed to tell the truth. And I log out,